Hello, my name is Nikos and today I continue to study anatomy by explaining it to you. In the previous video we talked about anatomy of the torso from the front and side views, and today I'm continuing to talk about back muscle. I'm also gonna do 3/4 view just to have a full picture, so to speak, because I find it helpful to understand how muscles like rotate, how they attach, to where, stuff like that. We're gonna start from back muscles, and I'm just gonna mention it right now that this is how I do it because anatomy of the back is complicated and literally every single artist, and I mean literally every single artist, draw it differently, simplify it differently, and explains it differently, and they don't explain why they explain it differently. And so you just sit there trying to understand what's going on, contemplating your life choices because you just wanted to draw men making out and stuff, and now you're doing this to yourself for whatever reason. And yes, but I think I figure out what's going on and I'm gonna do my best to explain it to you. I'm also gonna do it like previous video. I'm gonna explain where muscles attached, how they work, stuff like that, so you can kind of make your own conclusions, so to speak. So hopefully you don't have to be in the position in which I was. Yes, let's get into it. So here we go, everything basically like previous video, except now we have these two. I'm gonna be referring to them when I need muscles that we need to get through today, our friend to help me show everything more clearly. And yes, I'm gonna do this side with hand down, this side with hand up, again basically like previous video. I'm gonna go top to bottom, outside to the inside, which if you don't understand what I mean, you will. And thus I'm gonna start from trapezius, and I'm actually gonna start over here because there's quite a few things that need to be explained. So yeah, first of all, trapezius starts out here on the skull, quite high. I'm already mentioned in the previous video, the landmark to kind of understand it is basically top of the jawbone, or where ear ends, basically in between those two, but you obviously cannot see it from the back view, so you just kind of slap it over here. And because we're drawing muscular person to, show off the anatomy, I'm going to do this shape, but if a person not that muscular, it's gonna be much more like this. And this part of trapezius are the ones that are sticking out from the front, probably understandable, still gonna mention it. And trapezius over here goes like so, and visibly, because we care how muscle look like and not how they actually work to a degree, they visibly attach themselves. Oh my god, I can't draw it. They visibly attach themselves over here. So right before the end of this bone, which I forgot the name of again. I looked it up. I don't know the correct name for this, so it's gonna be just the part of the shoulder blade, whatever, collarbone, you get it. Visibly it attaches itself over here again. I'm gonna explain why in a second. First, trapezius in the top over here is actually quite thin, and it does not make entire neck from this back view. There's these two muscles that make up rest of the neck, which we're not gonna be talking about these two muscles right now. But just know that they are there, and trapezius is relatively thin over here. It's actually pretty visible, this area, in people who have short hair, so stare at people, I guess. And now I'm gonna mention that trapezius is actually not one singular chunk of muscle, is two, and they go basically like this and all the way down, whatever. What is this, you can ask, and I can answer. Basically, this is a connective tissue because, again, I already mentioned this last video, but muscles are not attached to bones directly. They attach to connective tissues, and then these connective tissues attach to the bones. And these connective tissues do not get bigger when muscles do. So when a person is muscular, because of how trapezius is attached, there's gonna be this diamond shape over here, which is basically a connective tissue of trapezius that's located over here, because trapezius doesn't go like up and down muscle fiber of it, they go to side like this. So yeah, it attaches itself here, over here, and then over here. And trapezius getting bigger, this does not get bigger, that's why it becomes much more visible, and it's not actually that visible in people who are not muscular. Okay. And that's actually exactly the reason why visibly trapezius attaches itself over here. It technically goes all the way like so, but because the end of it is this connective tissue, it does not expand, and so it's gonna actually be like a bump over here, and then it's gonna be deltoid, which is basically your shoulder, exactly the same way as a front view. I would actually recommend watch the previous video before this one. I should have mentioned it earlier, but whatever. Actually, if you kind of understand anatomy of the front, you can skip that previous video. Whatever, do whatever you want. Okay. Trapezius, like, I actually would have wanted to draw it more like this. Whatever. Trapezius, then a bump, which is a collarbone, and then deltoid. Exact same formula here. And this indent happening because both trapezius and then deltoid attaches itself over here. Again, connective tissues does not expand. It creates this. Now, let's talk about whatever's going on over here, because there is stuff to be talked about. So, trapezius goes and attaches itself over the shoulder blade and goes kind of like this and then like this, because, well, when I said that trapezius is actually 2 chunks of muscle, it's actually 6. It actually goes like this, kind of like this. No, not like this. But whatever, I don't personally draw like any indications for these individual pieces of trapezius, but because it's technically how it works, over here there's some complicated stuff, and so there is 2 main way to simplify it. A lot of people just do this, just basically ignoring whatever's going on over here, and some people draw it like this, basically exaggerating this shape, but not exactly exaggerating it in certain scenarios, because let me actually show you a reference. Here you can see that trapezius over here is defined in this shape very well. It's happening because arms are moving upwards, and then trapezius also is getting compressed, basically like this is happening, you know, arm and trapezius, and like body goes like this, and then trapezius getting compressed. You know what I mean, hopefully. Like this. That's why the shape of it is very much defined over here, also because, well, trapezius is attached over the shoulder blade, over this part of it, and when arm is moving, shoulder blade is moving. That's actually part of why back anatomy is so complicated. Everything moves a lot, and like it can be hard to understand even with references, because it can be hard to understand references because everything changes a lot. And so yeah, trapezius basically drawn like this is basically an exaggeration of this shape and just putting it at all times. I do it like this. Actually, I'm more drawing it like this, so okay, I'm gonna show it to you once we get there, because we have one last thing to discuss before we're gonna move on to me actually showing you. And it's again connective tissues, but over here. So it attaches itself like this. Trapezius attached to the 12th thoracic vertebrae, which is basically last vertebrae to which ribs are attached, so not like the end of ribs, but you know, this part, which is actually pretty low, because here's your butt or your glutes if you want to be fancy. Not focusing on them too much right now because they are part of leg anatomy for me. So 12th thoracic vertebrae is like more than a half of the back. But because this part is gonna be lost, because if the person has defined trapezius, it means that person is muscular. Because if person is not muscular, you're not gonna be seeing anything. If a person is not muscular, their back is basically one blob of shape, and that's it. So if a trapezius is defined, this part is getting lost. Again, I have a reference, let me show you. Over here it's not that visible, but over here you can very well see the trapezius ends in this W shape, I guess, and not in the sharp turn. Also, it ends relatively high, you know, because again it goes over here like this kind of, but connective tissue is basically getting lost in there. It's not visible, so it appears much shorter. end, not in a sharp end, but in this again W shape or whatever you can describe it. Now, how I actually draw it. First of all, I don't draw an entire shape of it over here. If I need to indicate that there's trapezius, if a person is not having a long hair, is basically this. Your brain can fill in the gaps. We're gonna be relying on it a lot. I at least rely on it a lot when I draw back. Then we have trapezius itself, which goes like this. Another thing about trapezius is that it's actually pretty short. So like, you know, this is head and this is already trapezius. So it's, you know, it's not that long, and this is a mistake that I make a lot. Making trapezius too long, too wide, because then you also have an arm, your deltoid. And so if you're gonna draw trapezius too long, so let's say like this or whatever, then you have your deltoid, the same thing from this side, and then your pelvis stays basically the same, and you have Johnny Bravo situation, which if you want to, go for it. But if you don't, be mindful of the fact that trapezius is actually relatively short. It's much easier when person is not muscular, because it's gonna be something like this. There is no defined separation between trapezius and deltoid, because again, this indent created by the fact that there's connective tissue over here, because deltoid attaches cells like this, trapezius again like this, and so they expand, connective tissue do not, this happening. But it does not happening when a person is not muscular, so it's much easier. You kind of don't care about this separation pretty much at all. But if you're drawing a muscular person, be mindful of the fact that trapezius is not that long. Then we're gonna have our diamond shape over here, and then let's move on to this. Now, first of all, let's kind of understand where trapezius is gonna be attached. So if those are ribs, are sketch indication of it, so that's where trapezius is gonna be stopping. But again, the end of it is not visible, so it's gonna stop somewhere over here, which is not that low. Although you can very well draw trapezius like this. A lot of people draw it like this. I personally do draw it like this. I'm gonna show you like right now, because I personally like this shape more. That's it. You can draw it like so. You can make it much longer than it actually is, or even much shorter than it actually is. A lot of people stylize trapezius a lot, so it's kind of just find whatever works for you. Now, what I do is first of all indicate that there is muscle over here, trapezius, then follow me. I'm taking smaller brush first of all. So what I'm doing here is I'm gonna do that, then I'm gonna do this, something like so, and then I'm gonna do something like so. And here you have your trapezius. It does not look that good right now because, well, it's not finished, but I like to draw it in this way. Also, you can notice that this, whatever this happening, yeah, it's not going exactly over the sketch lines for shoulder blades, because I made them a little bit over here too much. So I kind of just, you know, compensated for it. And then I'm gonna add a line over here, something like this. And you can probably guess that this part, this line, is basically does two things at once. It first indicates shoulder blade, and then it indicates trapezius. And again, there's a bunch of gaps, basically because your brain can fill in the gaps. Also, I don't like when there is too much lines, because for me it feels too cluttered, so to speak. So I do it like this. Now I'm actually gonna finish this side before we're gonna move here, because I think it's gonna be easier a little bit. So let me draw a line, and then I'm gonna explain what this line is. So here we go. I actually fixed deltoid a little bit. My cats are going insane. Now I'm gonna firstly finish an arm here, and here we have this. One thing that I struggled with for whatever reason is I did not understand for the life of me how arms attach to the body from the back view, because I don't know, it just feels like they kind of were put on the body without being actually attached to it. From the front there is nothing like this, like the pectoral goes over here, everything feels very much connected, Not here, there's just a line, and that's it. The reason for it is because muscles that make up this line wrap around the body like this and attach itself to the bone arm in the front. We're gonna be talking about latissimus dorsi and teres major, or shoulder blade muscle group actually as a whole. More so about shoulder blade muscle group right now. So let me actually go here. Now what I mean by wrapping around to the front is, well, they attached over there. So latissimus dorsi gonna go something like this and something like this, the bottom part, whatever for now. And then teres major is a part of, I actually have this like diagram or whatever, this chunk of muscle that is like separate and going to the front is, and it goes kind of like, well, something like this, whatever, to be honest. I just group them both together as much as I do it here, so it's just one shape. I do it here, it's also one shape. So if you're gonna like dissect it, teres major is gonna go something like here, and then latissimus dorsi gonna go something like here. It covers like the bottom a little bit of the scapula or shoulder blade. And yeah, this is it. It's going like this, and this top of it is a teres major. I don't indicate separation between them at all, like at all. Again, I group them both together, and I do not indicate anything for the rest of the shoulder blade muscle group, because I don't know, I don't like it. To be fair, I don't like where there's too much lines, and indicating shoulder blade muscle group is too much line for me. Anatomically, it's gonna go something like this. Like this is the deltoid, then this is like the rest of the shoulder blade muscle group that goes kind of like under the deltoid. Then over here is teres major again, and then over here is latissimus dorsi. And yeah, that's it. That's quite complicated, a lot of lines, so I don't do this. That's it. Like this is how I do it. I said it in the beginning of the video, but again, be mindful that there is one teres major, and then there is the rest of the shoulder blade muscle group. I don't even remember how they exactly attach, because they are under the deltoid. They are not visible. There's gonna be like a line something like this, or like this, or like this over here. If a person is very muscular, sometimes something like this, whatever, I don't know. Look at references. This is the things that you need to look at references, and like a lot of references to kind of understand if you want to be like more realistic. But I don't, so this is good enough for me. That's kind of it for the shoulder blade muscle group. I again literally care about teres major, and that's it, and even then I just group it with latissimus dorsi. But there is one more muscle that we need to talk about when it comes to shoulder blade, and it calls rhomboideus, or whatever. I don't think I pronounced it right. Whatever. It's this muscle. It actually goes like this, a smaller chunk, and then there's like this big chunk. It's the same from this side, kind of like this, whatever. Why am I mentioning it? Because sometimes it's visible. Actually, it is visible. Like, so if you're gonna again dissect it, the way everything works over here is, this is trapezius. Actually, it's gonna go something more like this, then we have latissimus dorsi, something like here, and so this little triangle is a rhomboideus. It's gonna be rhomboideus. So it's visible from underneath the shoulder blade, basically in between shoulder blade and trapezius at all times. But it becomes much more visible when arms going upwards. Again, I have a reference. Actually, it's the same one. This triangle is rhomboideus because this is trapezius. We've been over this. Then you can see this latissimus dorsi. It's like wraps like this from underneath trapezius. Yeah, I did not mention it. It goes like, it comes from underneath trapezius, then it wraps around to the front over there. This is a shoulder blade. This is teres major, that is also wraps around and goes to the front. Then this is like deltoid, over here all of that is deltoid, and then over here is just other shoulder blade muscle group that is just hanging around over here. But this triangle, this deep indent in this particular references is rhomboideus. It's the space between trapezius and shoulder blade. It is much more visible here because shoulder blade moves and reveals bigger chunk of it. But technically it's visible at all times, even when arms are down. I mainly tell you about it so you can kind of understand what are these triangles that's sometimes visible on references, because I don't draw any indications for rhomboideus. I may use it when I'm like shading and like I'm gonna put something like this little triangle in shadow, but that's it. But it did confuse me on references on what in the actual yes are those triangles in between shoulder blades and trapezius that's sometimes visible. That's rhomboideus. That's basically deeper muscle that is visible at some poses. Again, back muscles are complicated. Let's move on to the next thing. Next thing is we're gonna continue with latissimus dorsi. So yeah, it goes from underneath trapezius to the front of the arm. I talked about how it works in the front over here in the previous video. I already mentioned in the previous video again that it goes over here, it attaches itself to the lower ribs, and then it goes like so. That's actually why we have this shape, because latissimus dorsi goes like this, and once lower ribs are ending, it kind of goes like so. Also gonna return to here real quick. If a person is not muscular, then their latissimus dorsi gonna be something like this, and then arm is gonna go something like this. So they basically gonna come from the same line, which is even more confusing for me, because when it is this, it's, I don't know, I just think that this looks more understandable than whatever this is. But yeah, that's also add to my confusion on why or how arms are exactly attached to the body. But you know, and this is happening because, you know, muscles can expand but bones cannot. So if muscles of the back getting bigger, they expand and then starts to overlap with basically arm, goes over the bone, all of that good stuff. That's why it looks like this, and it's gonna look again like this if a person is not muscular. But that's, you know, body types, references, situation. Again, you cannot get away with drawing backs without using references, unfortunately. Now let's return to latissimus dorsi, because yeah, it goes like this and then over like this crest, part of the crest of the pelvic bone, and it wraps around this thing and it does everything the same from this side. Now now I don't like how people explain latissimus dorsi, because latissimus dorsi is the one muscle that is explained the most different way. Because some people gonna tell you that latissimus dorsi is only this. They're not even gonna mention this part. Some people gonna tell you that latissimus dorsi is this. Why? There's actually a reason why, because all of this part, something like this, all of this is connective. I actually have another diagram over here, look. Everything white is a connective tissue. So some people choose to ignore it, and some people choose to ignore it in different ways. So again, it's result in some people drawing latissimus dorsi as this shape, which is can be described as, you know, somebody described as an open book, as a butterfly, as like whatever. Some people again gonna simplify it this way, some people gonna simplify it in this way, some people gonna draw an entire over it, and nobody gonna mention why they do, why I'm gonna have I don't know what I'm gonna have, but I'm gonna have something, because what in the actual, yes. So now you can be aware that if a person draws latissimus dorsi like this and like this and in whatever way, they do it because they simplify an actual muscle in a different way. Yeah, that, like, because this way to draw it, or even this way, is basically you drawing only visible muscles that we care about as artists, about visible part of muscles and not how actually it works. But it would be nice to explain why you simplify it so drastically different from everyone else. Thank you very much. Now, over here on how I do it is, again, I don't indicate latissimus dorsi over here. I do indicate it in like 3/4 view, or even when it's like a little of a turn, because you most likely, you very rarely gonna draw someone from like straight back view. So in like, again, a little turn, I do indicate it because, you know, yeah, I'm gonna show it when we're gonna get to 3/4 actually. I don't know why I'm talking about it right now, but yeah, but over here, I don't indicate it a lot. The extent of my indication is I'm gonna extend this line a little bit, and then I'm gonna do this. And this is kind of like just, you know, it goes, okay, it goes over here like this. But I'm not drawing like its entirety. Now, let me actually draw glutes real quick. They're gonna go something like this. Something like this. Oh no, they are not symmetrical, or are they? Okay, we don't care about glutes right now because they're part of black anatomy. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on from them. So, real quick, this part is oblique. I talked about oblique more over here because oblique is all of this. All of this is oblique. All of this is oblique, you know. But oblique is basically, let me erase this and actually this. Oblique is attached to, like, there's external, internal, whatever. I simplify it and call it oblique. In general, the most visible, the last visible, whatever, the one that is going matter here is oblique that attaches to the lower ribs and somewhere over here on the crest of the pelvic bone. And then, because of there's this latissimus dorsi, it goes something like this, and then like this. You can see a little triangle over here. To be fair with you, have no idea what it is. I don't know. I couldn't find any explanation because sometimes people have these dimples over here. From what I understand, those triangles are not them. They're also like kind of locate here, and dimples kind of locate here. So I don't know what are those, but sometimes people are drawing them. Sometimes, like, when people explain, they just draw it this way and don't mention this triangle. I assume it's something that reveals a deeper part of muscles, the same way as like rhomboideus revealed in, you know, between shoulder blade and trapezius, but it's just irrelevant because when trapezius and like shoulder blades are moving, rhomboideus gets revealed much more, but there is no anything else here. So I don't know. Just know that there is triangle over here which exists for whatever reason. To get at my nerves, I guess, because I have no idea why else it could be there. So then we're gonna have a line. I'm gonna stop line over here because this like triangle is kind of this triangle, and you know, all of the muscles are gonna kind of stop here because another thing about the back is that it's not like this. It's not cylindrical. I did not pronounce that right. It has this wavy shape all across the back. Keep that in mind. And why do we have wavy shape? Because, my friends, we're gonna have to talk about this monstrosity, which I don't even gonna try to pronounce. Erector whatever. Erector whatever is the deepest visible muscle of the back. It goes all across the spine. It's not visible underneath trapezius at all, so we care about this part of it. You can simplify it as two tubes going like this. But if we're gonna be more detailed, there's gonna be kind of like this part. You 100% understand what are those. You 100% saw them, or I don't know. You know what I'm talking about right now. They're gonna go something like this. They're gonna thin out over there. And then we're gonna have like these another chunks that are also gonna thin out there, but doesn't matter because they go underneath trapezius. So over here they look like this. Now it is kind of hard to understand what I'm even talking about, so again, references. Like, you cannot escape them. You cannot escape references when you're drawing back. I'm sorry. Here, this is like, okay, usually they are not, this part is not that visible, but over here it is pretty visible. So you can see this chunk of muscle, this chunk of muscle, and then these two. Again, you 100% understand what I'm talking about with these two. Also, those are dimples that some people have. And again, I don't think that those are those triangles, but maybe they are, I don't know. Let's move on from the triangles, okay? So chunk of muscle, this trapezius, not visible in this trapezius, chunk of muscle, chunk of muscle. Now, again, you can just simplify it as two tubes, because most people actually not gonna have this very defined, because let's actually go back to the previous you can see like this over here. Okay, let's do this. Hopefully I'm not gonna get in trouble with YouTube. So you can see like this is kind of like, again, the tube that goes down here, and this you can see here as well. You can actually like kind of see this is gonna be this round chunk of muscle, and then this is this another tube, round chunk of muscle. Most people, again, not gonna have very defined separation in between those two, so you can very well just simplify it this way and call it a day. And it is visible because, well, first of all, over here it's kind of not covered by anything, and latissimus dorsi over here is pretty thin. Latissimus dorsi is pretty thin muscle, so erector thing can stick out, and it is sticking out from underneath it. You can simplify it also in this way. No, not in this way. Let's say in this way. Also, they are not going like this. They going like this. The shapes are going down. They're not connecting. They're not attaching to the latissimus dorsi. They do not wrap around the body. They go along the spine from top to bottom, or from like bottom to the top, whatever. And yes, they stop over here, like that's kind of where they attach. Again, they're gonna wrap around the same thing as latissimus dorsi, but that is connective tissue that is not visible and it's not getting in bigger, all of that. Now, these chunks of muscle kind of hard for me to indicate here. They are very, very useful when you draw in 3/4, because, well, let's say this is like your rib cage, and then this is your butt, and then let me do this, like this your trapezius, improvised. Okay, let's do it like this, like it wraps around, it does this, your like deltoid, whatever, your shoulder blade, and then this is the line of the spine, and here you have one chunk of round muscle, another chunk of round muscle, tube and tubes, and here, whoop, you have a back, and then you have a butt, and then you have like this, crest of the pelvic bone, like this, you have a leg, a butt again, this, and yeah, these two chunks are very useful in 3/4 if you know what you're doing, if you know what you're looking for. This can help you to like understand what's going on, to draw it. So kind of like, look at references. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. I don't like looking for references either, but that's just the things that you will have to look at, like ton of backs, and just kind of figure stuff out. You will notice it, you will understand it, but it will take some time and effort. Now, how I draw this, I don't know. Actually, I hate to draw in this part, because it all boils down to find a way to draw a diamond shape again, not over here, because there's a lot of ways that you can draw it, a lot of things that you can indicate. You can indicate basically separation between oblique and latissimus dorsi. You can indicate erector thingy over here. You can indicate, basically simplify the muscle fiber of latissimus dorsi. You can indicate erector spinae. You can indicate it in this way. Like, there's a lot of things that can be indicated here. So I struggle with it because I don't have like I'm doing this at all times. It's kind of case to case basis. I'm just trying bunch of stuff and see what sticks, what I like in the particular drawing, in the particular pose. And again, I don't like when there's a lot of lines that are too cluttered, so sometimes they feel like too much and I do something differently. But like, you know, again, it all boils down to drawing a diamond shape. It is much easier in like 3/4 view. Again, I showed you like that was very easy to indicate everything, but it's kind of a struggle for me to do in this perspective from like straight back view. Sometimes I actually sometimes just indicate these dimples and call it a day. A lot of ways that I can do it, but for the sake of saving my time and my sanity, I'm just gonna let's do something like, I don't know, something like this and call it a day, because you got the idea. Great. I'm gonna color code everything in the end so you can kind of see it more clearly. I don't know how I'm gonna do it with all of the layering, to be honest, but I'll find a way, I hope. Now let's quickly get through this side, because once you know everything, it's actually pretty easy. So first, trapezius, it goes something like this. Over here you can see that trapezius goes straight behind the arm in this perspective. So yeah, it does kind of like this, and then the same thing that's over here, but well, actually not exactly. First of all, I'm drawing it much more, so I indicate like more lines because, well, again, arm is moving upwards, trapezius is much more defined, and so I kind of indicate that it is much more defined with drawing it, well, much more defined. But there's the thing that shoulder blade is gonna move like this. Actually, when arm is going straight down up, it's gonna like move a lot. And yeah, like if this is like shoulder blade, here's rhomboideus, the triangle of rhomboideus gonna be revealed. I'm not indicating it, but just keep it in mind. And I'm again drawing this shape. It's actually not necessarily the most anatomically correct things to do. Maybe it's gonna be much more like this. I kind of like, again, case to case basis over here as well, with scapula, shoulder blade, whatever. You just do what sticks. You know the general idea, you know how it all attach, how it all works, figure stuff out with references. I do it kind of like this. Sometimes I actually do it kind of like this. Again, there is no like one and done situation for me over here. Then let's quickly do deltoid. Again, if you look over here, deltoid is kind of goes all behind from the front view. So from the back view, it's all going like so, and is attached to the shoulder blade over here. I mentioned it already. And so when you moving your arm upwards, it's doing this. It's a little awkward, I don't like it, but that's how muscles work, unfortunately. I don't draw it like fully, I just do it like this and that's it. Then like other muscles of the arm, not very good, but we're not drawing muscles of the arm right now, so let's ignore this part. Okay. Then there's actually gonna be a little bit of indent here. I'm gonna put reference here because, well, a bunch of stuff is attached over there. Connective tissue does not get bigger, so when arms lifting upwards, this creates this indent. I don't actually know how to indicate it, again, case to case basis. I hate this thing actually, because it's always, I never like how it looks, but unfortunately that's how anatomy works. Now then you have this, which is, well, teres major, like this. So again, I am gonna remind you that this is deltoid, and so this is already teres major. From like the arm up perspective, this is already it. Then we have latissimus dorsi that goes kind of like this, and yes, this triangle is rhomboideus. Maybe latissimus dorsi gonna be even something lower, something like this, because rhomboideus from this perspective, from this like, not perspective, from this like pose, is very revealed. And yeah, this is like the rest of the shoulder blade muscle group that goes kind of there, whatever. And you can notice that I did latissimus dorsi and like the entire shape is much more straighter than this, because well, muscle stretch, when you put arm up, muscle's gonna follow, so I draw it a little bit straighter because, well, muscle stretch, that's how muscle are moving. Then we have again like so, oblique. Again, glutes are not symmetrical at all. Will have to forgive myself for this. And here we kind of have this again headache with the diamond shape. That's kind of it. These glutes are horrible. My god. Anyway, I tried to do like basically the same guy as this one. Not necessarily worked, but oh well. Hopefully it was helpful. Yeah, I actually, let's roll back. I actually sometimes add something little here, maybe like the end of the shoulder blade, maybe like a little separation between latissimus dorsi and everything. I may add a little line over here to indicate the deltoid. Basically, like, again, it's all very like case-to-case basis, based on a physique of a person, of a character that I draw, on like whatever they doing, on whatever my mood is, honestly. So yeah, I once again recommend you to look at references, and look at references a lot, and figure stuff out for yourself, because nobody can actually tell you how to do stuff. I did my best with attempting to explain on how to do the back situation. Now the ball is in your court, or whatever you can say. And so, well, that's actually kind of it for the back. I'm gonna do the 3/4 now, and then I'm gonna color code everything, and we're gonna return to it all, okay? Okay. I did not actually realize how much I was talking. So we're not gonna be doing 3/4 review today, because it's not that necessary. It is helpful, but it is not necessary. So you can tell me if you want me to do 3/4 review, and I will, but yeah. But because of that, I'm gonna talk a little bit more right now, because I thought to do it when I'm gonna do 3/4 review. So yeah, I color coded everything and like stuff from the previous video as well. I also did with numbers, like, so it's a little bit too much, I think. So now I want to talk particularly about erector spina. I still don't know how to pronounce erector spina, yeah. Because I actually changed over here the lines that I did. Let me show. I did this, and then I changed it to this. When I said that I don't have something that I do all the time, kind of yeah, but kind of not. So what I try to do when I draw back, when I do this diamond shape, is to place two lines over here that's kind of not these muscles, not this part of erector thingy, but not the separation between latissimus dorsi and oblique, but it kind of both, you know, it can kind of be this, but it can also kind of be this. It helps with shadings then, and it's also kind of do two things at one time, basically, like this line over here, this line as well, and then this line does, well, exact same thing. First of all, it's supposed to indicate the muscle part of latissimus dorsi. Again, it can kind of be described like this or like this, we've been over this. But also it indicates erector spinae, which I did not indicate it here because, well, I don't actually know how to do it for it to be understandable, because anatomically it goes something like this. No, it even goes something like this, then over here, then it goes over like this, the same way from this side. So anatomically it goes kind of like this, but visually it can go kind of like this. Visually it can go like this. So, you know, we saw it with a reference before then. Visually, it can look like this. There can be just lines over here and then lines over here. And so the top part of this muscle is getting basically lost. It can look like this. There is a lot of ways that erector thingy can look like, because it is very much depends on a person, on the physical state of their body, on how buff, muscular, ripped they are. Because again, it is muscle that is located underneath latissimus dorsi, and despite the fact that latissimus dorsi is pretty thin, so it is visible, it's, you know, it's still under there, it's like, it's complicated. That's why I don't like bags, it's complicated, and there can be a lot of stuff going on. So I have several new references that we're gonna like dissect right now, so you hopefully will kind of understand more. But yeah, now let's see what's going on here. First we have trapezius. It goes like this and then like this. Not very defined like shape of trapezius, so to speak, here, but it is pretty visible over here. Then you can see this is going a shoulder blade, and this is triangle of rhomboideus that is getting revealed. Yes. Then here we're gonna have latissimus dorsi. Latissimus dorsi here is gonna be teres major first. You can see faintly here kind of a line, and it's kind of go like this and then like this. This is teres major, this is latissimus dorsi. And yeah, latissimus dorsi go like this. Again, person is in the 3/4 view from the back. Latissimus dorsi gonna do this thing because it goes like from the arm. When arm move, latissimus dorsi move. I actually gonna talk a bit more about it when I'm gonna get to arm anatomy, to kind of, you know, have a full picture, everything, like how it's connected, stuff like that. So we'll get back to it. But yeah, latissimus dorsi act like this, and then here, this is erector thingy again. Like obviously this one, bottoms one, that are pretty understandable and visible at a lot of people. And then again, this chunk of muscle that is kind of goes like this, it's erector thingy. And as I said, on top of it, like unlike here when you can kind of see it very well, here you can see just the bottom line of it, and that's it. Also, erector thingy, this part goes a little bit lower than latissimus dorsi, so it goes like this, and over here starts to go like this, and erector thingy goes like a little bit lower, this chunk, this piece of muscle. But this is where like everything is pretty defined, everything is pretty visible, everything is pretty clear. Let's move on to this piece. So you can see trapezius very well over here, like this. It's getting kind of lost here. Then another thing that is pretty visible is deltoid. It goes like this. This is deltoid. Then other part of the arm. Then let's zoom in, and again, this is teres major. You can see this little wave. This is teres major. It goes like this. This is a shoulder blade basically over here. So this is teres major, kind of like this, and then latissimus dorsi that goes like this and like this under the trapezius. And then you can see this little barely noticeable shape. It is rhomboideus because arms are kind of, they are not going down, they're not going like up, but they still move a little bit, so shoulder blade does move also a little bit, so it does reveal a little bit more rhomboideus, but rhomboideus again visible at all times, even when arms are completely down. So you know, this little line is rhomboideus. And then here you see that erector thingy is basically just two chunks of muscle. They are not very separated between this part and this part. They kind of create two tubes from both sides, and that's it. And that's it. And so that's another thing how it can look. But if you like gonna look here, you can see this chunk that is supposed to be this chunk, but only because of shadows. It's not visible here because there's no shadows, but it's also there. Again, it kind of blends in into two tubes, so that's also the way that it can be simplified. And then we're gonna have this, a person who is not very muscular, like pretty not muscular. You can see trapezius here, shoulder blade situation, everything, yeah, like deltoid like this. And then erector spinae, I still don't, I don't know whether or not I pronounce it right, I apologize in any case. Here you can like see, not very good, but you can still see erector stingy at the bottom, but then they are here. You know, they are muscles, they are here, but they are not very visible because a person is not very muscular, it's not very bulky, so you can kind of see over here like this. This is erector thingy because again person is 3/4 a little bit, so because there's like moving of the body, this blob of muscle kind of overlap with the back, so you can kind of see this goes a straight line, and then this, whatever you can describe this arch or I don't know, is basically overlap of erector thingy part that is sticks out in front of this, which is basically latissimus dorsi, and then you have obliques over here. From this side, it's not like, it's not very visible, like it's barely visible I would say, but it is very visible, like this line of the back, which pretty much every person has this line of the back, and again this line of the back is created because of erector thingy. It's basically two tubes on both sides of your spine that creates this wave, and that's it. And I do have a lot of other references of the back where erector thingy looks in a different way, or like it's a different pose or whatever. But the thing is, I cannot show you literally everything because again, literally every single person gonna have it a little bit differently. It very much depends on a lot of things. So you just kind of have to look at references and just try to see, try to understand it. I did not started to see it immediately. It took me some time to understand what I'm looking for, but once you do, you will immediately start to see those shapes, those lines that can sometimes be there. You will understand what's going on once you get there. And yeah, again, unfortunately, you cannot escape references in the back view at all. But it is kind of it for today. Hopefully you found it helpful. You can tell me if you did. And thanks, you can stick around, you can like, subscribe, all of that stuff. And bye!